could literally go to a nightclub and there'd be Julio Iglesias dancing next to you, or Madonna on a table over there, full of celebrities at the time, just mixing with the normal public. Every day in Ibiza in this period was a Saturday, or it was a weekend. You know, there was no such thing as a Monday morning. And then DC10 came along, and they completely sort of like
DC10 on a Monday.
Lionel Messi came along and then made us a very attractive offer. We actually had Cristiano Ronaldo as well. He's interesting.
Did you not play him off against each other?
Yeah, exactly. we done some amazing events down there. We had Sasha, we had Pete Tong doing his birthday there, Eric Murillo, Eric Prydz, Deadmau5. So.
How would you explain the island to someone who's never been to the island?
How would I give an overview? I mean, Ibiza.
Jason, welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, very much looking forward to this one. Let's roll all the way back. When was the first time you come to Ibiza?
Okay, the very first time I came to Ibiza, I actually had my 17th birthday here. So me and a friend of mine, it was our first holiday away from our parents on a bit of a, a bit of a kind of international jolly. So we came over here. We had 2 weeks in San Antonio. I actually had my 17th birthday during that period. And yeah, we just sort of saw what was going on, just couldn't believe, there was this place that existed. We'd heard about it. It was a kind of like this fabled location, but we kind of got over here and we saw the flamboyance and felt the energy, but we were too young to actually kind of, to actually get involved in it. We couldn't afford it first and foremost, and they wouldn't have let us in probably on the second instance, but I kind of felt the magic and saw the magic and knew one day I'd be part of that magic.
Yeah. What year did you actually go, do you know what, I've gone back to England, I've had a party there for 2 weeks, I've gone back to England, I'm not sure I'm really liking England as much as I want to get back in Ibiza and do some full-time stuff out there?
Well, I used to be a roofer, funnily enough, back in the day. When you just leave school and don't quite know what you're going to be doing. I ended up on building sites, as many people did, I'm sure. And the company I was working for got the job to do the hotel arts in Barcelona. That started in 1990, and obviously Olympic Games in 92. I came to Ibiza at that point and ended up spending the summer here. At this point, I was going to the clubs and the parties and seeing what was going on here and just having like the best time ever. And at which point, the end of the season finished and I went back to the UK and realised I just had to get out of there. I thought, how can I get back to Ibiza and how can I continue to live this lifestyle that I'd seen existed? And sort of I put the plans in place and then kind of drove down here in my XR2 in 1993. And that was my arrival on the island. And I never went back.
Wow. So you've done a good stint out here.
32 years now.
32 years, Jace. Wow.
32 years, yeah.
So there's nothing you've not seen on this island.
There's very little I've not seen on this island. I've seen the evolution, the ups and downs, the highs and the lows, and live to tell the story.
When you come back on the island, what were you doing to earn a pound note back then?
When I came back to the island originally, say 93, I come over here with £500, I think. So I had to get a job pretty quick. I started putting up posters for the nightclubs. That is a thankless task because no matter how many posters you're putting up, it's never sufficient. And then I got a job in one of the bars in Ibiza town, a bar called Tango Bar. And my job was to get people to sit down and buy drinks and things like this. And I was quite good at this. And at this time, it was when the British promoters started to appear on the island, Ministry of Sound, Renaissance, etc. And I was at the centre point, so I was able to help and facilitate these parties, essentially get people into their clubs. So that's what I was. I was a PR boy back in the day,
like a promoter,
and but moreover, kind of working for the bar and helping out the clubs and the promoters, the British promoters at the time. And I thought, I'm good at this and I should be able to actually kind of do something more. So that's when I thought, I need to work for myself and how do I get my first business, and utilise all these connections that I've been establishing.
And what was your first business on the island?
It was a small bar, again, in Ibiza town called the Vogue Bar. I had 12 tables outside and it became like the hotspot for the kind of, for the promoters, like I said. And everyone used to come down there and have a drink and get the tickets. And it was very, very popular. I had a partner at the time, Nick. And we used to just have the best time ever. We used to kind of go down the bar at 8, 9 o'clock at night, have a few Japitos, people would come along and next thing you know, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, at which point we'd be going off to a nightclub. So it was they were good days. My first business was a small bar called the Vogue Bar.
So how many years did you have that before you moved on to the next business?
I had that bar for 2 years, up until 1998. At which point we actually realised we needed to expand and get a bigger location. We were just completely banged out every single day. All the DJs wanted to come on be part of what we were doing. All the British promoters wanted to kind of utilise our central location to kind of help to organise their parties. So yeah, we moved to a bigger bar in 1998 that became the Bass Bar.
Oh, the Bass Bar.
The Bass Bar.
Fantastic. That's got a good name.
It was again, these were great days. There was two British bars in Ibiza town. There was the Bass Bar and the Rock Bar. I was the bass and Nick was the rock. In the end, we split up.
Why did you split?
Well, he tried to pull a move on me. I went off to India one winter and I got back from India and he said to me, okay, listen, what I've done, I've actually bought the bar next door, but that's going to be my bar. And I'm also going to be part of this bar. So you'll kind of be working for me. And I went, well, that's actually not quite right. So I found a new partner, a gentleman called Ralph Kuhn, who sadly passed on. And then we set the Bass Bar up and it became, there was a bit of competition back in the day.
Bound to be, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, who's going to go to the bass, who's going to go to the rock? But we worked side by side for many, many years and managed to make it work. And it was, it was a lot of fun. And back then, this is the like pre-mobile phone era. Computers weren't even a big thing back in the sort of like late 90s. So every single person used to come to Ibiza town to actually kind of get the tickets for the club or the guest list or to meet their friends or to hook something up, whatever. And then from that point, they'd go to a club. So it was a real meeting point. These days, people arrange everything on a mobile phone beforehand. The clubs also used to use these bars to get people to actually go to the clubs because we used to sell tickets and there was the parades around Ibiza town. So it was a real focal point for the island. But mobile phones, destroyed that.
Social media.
And also the port itself wasn't what it was. We used to be able to have DJs playing loud music. Also, all the biggest DJs used to come down to the bar and want to spin and do the pre-parties. So the town hall decided that they didn't want that anymore, bowing down to the local residents. So the whole dynamic changed really, and it kind of lost a bit of the sparkle.
How many years did you have the Bass Bar for?
I've still got the Bass Bar, fun enough. I don't run it anymore. I'm a bit too old for that. I tried it a couple of years ago and it nearly killed me. I've had it since 98, so I still have it now, but now I just rent it out and work with some younger people and they kind of, they're the driving force these days.
How would you explain the island back then? Like, we've been coming here 30 odd years, maybe. How would you explain the island sort of late 90s to where it is now?
I mean, back then we had a lot more freedom. Because you could essentially be out at a party or at a bar or on a beach club, whatever, and no one could bother you. You were really living in the moment. The whole VIP scene wasn't as prevalent as what it is today. You could literally go to a nightclub and you'd be, there'd be Julio Iglesias dancing next to you or kind of Madonna on a table over there. And it was like kind of full of celebrities at the time, just mixing with the normal public. And then, I suppose in relation to what people wanted to have a bit more security and wanted to be a bit more lavish in terms of what they were spending. So the VIP scene sort of burgeoned and developed really. But back then it was a lot more free. You could go out and party. There was no drink drive controls on the road. So you could rock out and party at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning and just get in a car and drive home carefully, of course. So yeah, it was, they were hedonistic, heady days for sure.
When did you see the scene really change? We talk about the VIP parties where people would have your champagne, your vodkas, your sparklers, cornered off areas, and that obviously went to a whole new level. What rough year do you remember that changing into?
I mean, people have always had a VIP element. I mean, Pasha was the VIP club back in the day, and you had El Divino as well.
What a great club El Divino was. Amazing. You used to get a boat to it.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And you'd be there with the kind of, there'd be members of the Arab royal families and literally the kind of, the jet set and glitterati of the world at that time. And, so it always had that element, but it wasn't so divided. You actually kind of felt that you were part of their world and they were part of your world and everyone was having a good time collectively. And that doesn't really happen these days because there's so many different layers of security and things like this. So it's
how much you pay, the more you pay, the more higher up.
Precisely. So I saw that sort of starting to kind of edge in the 2000s really. And then obviously with the advent of Ushuaia and kind of high, that kind of, they pushed it more in that direction really. But yeah, that's when it all started to change.
Tell me your memories of space.
My goodness, does anyone have any memories of space? Actually, space was the place, of course. It was the after hours. You used to go there invariably after a night out, but sometimes, specifically on the Sunday with Brandon and Alex, I'm sure you've covered that.
Yeah.
You'd literally, it was that good. You'd wake up on Sunday morning to go to space. So you'd arrive there sort of like 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and you just kind of get involved from that point onwards. Yeah. And again, there was no VIP on the space at these days, so everyone was just really there together, just lavishing in the music and just really kind of living the moment. So yeah, those space days were something never to be repeated.
Do you know what? Ironically, there was something on Facebook the other day where someone had some footage from space in the 90s, mid 90s, late 90s. There's no cameras, there's no nothing. People are just loving it and having it and meeting everyone, chatting, dancing. It was just amazing times.
They were amazing times. Yeah, and like I said, we all felt that we had this freedom and we were doing something unique and just living our best lives.
Living in the moment.
And to be things like, obviously, every day in Ibiza in this period was a Saturday, or it was a weekend. There was no such thing as a Monday morning. And then DC 10 came along, and they completely sort of like
on a Monday
revolutionised Mondays. And it was kind of that deconstruction of reality that kind of really made Ibiza what it is and has become and is continuing to be. And you could be here and you could actually live your best life and moving to Ibiza as obviously many of us did back in the day, you could recreate yourself. I mean, you could arrive here like a builder from Essex and end up finding your way and your niche to actually kind of become part of this island. And I always suggest to people these days, if they're thinking about moving to Ibiza, don't come here with an ambition to open a bar or a restaurant or do this or do that. Kind of come here with your eyes completely wide open and sort of like settle. I mean, come with enough money to be able to support yourself for a period of time, obviously, and just find your niche and find your way in Ibiza. See what it's missing. See where you can contribute to the island, because that's what you have to do. Yeah. You can't come here and take. You need to come here and contribute. Yeah. And if you do that, and I believe, if Ibiza and the Ibizan people themselves specifically, they feel you doing that, then you're embraced and then you can develop here. And that's how I see it.
How many years were you out here until you come up with the wonderful idea of creating the famous Vive Hotel?
Again, what was happening was like my bar was completely banged out. It was going so well, and listening to all of all my clients basically, to say the DJs, Carl, Peter, Pete Tong, Carl Cox, Eric Murillo. These guys were all, they were kind of all, wanting to kind of see something else happen, and I kind of thought, okay, but if all these people coming down to the bar are complaining about where they're staying, surely I could evolve the hotel concept here in Ibiza at the time. It was all family orientated, 3-star package holidays. And then it would work. So I'm thinking, okay, what are these people looking for? They're looking for good service. They're looking for good food. They're looking for good drinks. And they're looking for somewhere they can party without any problems whatsoever, with no children around. So I came up with a party hotel concept, and I'd met obviously a guy from the city called Max Leverett. I'm not sure if you know Max or not, and then Nick Reed. And then we decided we'd kind of embark on this adventure to create this party hotel.
And it certainly was a party.
It certainly was.
I stayed there a few times over the years of the early 2000s. You'd come back from a club, you go into your club. It was like being in Vegas. And no clocks, no nothing, door locked. Amazing atmosphere of people just having. You'd come out at like 5 PM.
It was a length of time forgot. And that
what was it called? Was it called something?
Experience Bar.
Okay. And what was his nickname?
It was. I mean, Martin from Makepeace called it the Vampire Bar. I mean, the Bar of Doom. So many people actually think that this bar was a basement bar because it had that feeling. Yeah. We had like kind of very heavy blackout curtains, and it's like you say, you'd kind of walk in there at whatever time in the morning, and you'd walk out of there whenever you could later on in the afternoon on the very next day. It was literally 24 hours. Yeah. And because we owned the hotel, we were able to kind of, get away with it. I mean, there was, technically it wasn't illegal, but we kind of just, and no one knew about it unless you knew, so you had to either be a client of the hotel or a friend of ours to actually kind of get in there. But it was, so it was in the year 2000, we came up with the idea, and I knew I could make it work. I had the connections in the media and all the connections with, obviously all the people that kind of mattered on the island, and we set it into place. I mean, I was 29 years old at the time.
Was it? Okay. Still a young pup.
Yeah. And we managed to kind of, we brought in 2 more investors, Jamie Kahn and Neil Dawson, and we managed to kind of get the amount of cash required to actually allow the bank to kind of, finish off the deal for us.
How much did you pay for that hotel?
We paid back in the day, 43 million pesetas,
which is the equivalent.
Which is about 2.5 million euros.
Was that what it was back in the day? And it wasn't in a nice area, was it?
It was very close to the beach in Figueretas.
Location-wise, yeah.
But it wasn't a nice area.
No.
At this time, Figueretas was full of hookers and junkies, basically. Right. So it wasn't particularly nice. It was quite salubrious, but we were able to help gentrify the location. But it was close to Ibiza town, playing in Bossa, Figueretas. So we were able to sort of gentrify the location with the help of the neighbours and kind of move it all forward. And it's pimped there in Figueretas. It's all 5-star.
It's all lovely now, isn't it?
It's all lovely.
Fair play to you, because that's got a great reputation, SVV. How many years did you have SVV for?
We owned it for 18 years.
Wow.
And it was such a wonderful journey to be on. I mean, we bought it was an old hostel. And I remember kind of walking into the hotel when Max and I were looking to buy a premises, and so I'm just like being completely sort of taken back by the aesthetic of the hotel itself, the facade, and it had some Art Deco elements that I embraced because I'd lived in South Beach in Miami, and I said to Max, this is the place. And I remember walking around with the owner, who was an old Evicenco gentleman, and we were a couple of kids cruising around, a bit lively.
Hotel.
Yeah, we were buying a hotel. And he's looking at us thinking, of course you do, boys. You've obviously just come out of space. But so we went up to the best room, and we can do this and we can do that, and we managed to do it. And then we went on this journey. We didn't have a clue what we were doing in the first couple of years, but we soon learned the hard way by losing a bit of money. And then we went into the development phase, and it was really, it was crazy. We had a Chileno architect, and he'd done some wild things. We had like these handles on the walls for kind of extra traction and things like this, and crazy wallpapers. And it was actually a friend of mine, Ricardo Villalobos, a DJ, said it was like going into a David Lynch movie, going into the experience bar, because it was surreal, and you never knew quite who you were going to bump into and quite what was going to happen, or even quite when you'd be leaving. But
did you know what you were getting yourself into before you jumped into it? Because owning a hotel is 24/7. You are like non-stop. You're on call the whole time. Did you know what you're getting yourself into?
I mean, I had no idea whatsoever. But I had the energy and the enthusiasm. So simultaneously, we had the base bar, and that was the feeder, really. So everyone used to come down to the base bar, and we'd start our night there. We'd have a few drinks, a few Japitos.
What's a Japito?
A shot. And then that would kind of set you in motion, and obviously you nip up to the office, and then we'd just do a bit of paperwork, and then we'd kind of choose which party we were going to go to on any specific night, and then off we'd go, and we'd come out of that party, whether it was Cream or Renaissance or Amnesia or whatever. There's always a party, and it was literally every single day of the week. We'd come out of the bar, we'd go to a party, and then we'd come out of the party, and then we'd go back to the hotel where we had our own nightclub. And then what was happening was all of the kind of the big DJs of the moment, they were finishing, their parties, and then
come back to yours.
Then what do we do now? Well, we've got a private nightclub that we can go back to. So they would kind of round up their entourage, and obviously give me a call, Jason, can we come back to the hotel? And I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm here. And then next thing you know, you'd have Sven Vaith with Richie Hawtin or all of the Cocoon Boys, or the Moneypenny Boys, or whatever, just all coming back to the hotel to continue their party. It was it was a lot of fun.
What clubs can you speak highly of on the island that you grew up with in the sort of 90s, 2000s?
You have to have a relationship with all of the clubs in Ibiza, and they're all different. They're all unique. You mentioned Space earlier, that's become high. I mean, Space to me was the ultimate in clubbing experience. Pasha was a beautiful club, and we used to go up to, there was a part of it called the Funky Room that Vaughan used to run, and that was really, really cool. Amnesia with the Cream parties, and I mentioned the Cocoon parties, they were extraordinary times. So all of the clubs, I mean, when you think about it, what the clubs are here in Ibiza, they're tourist attractions, aren't they? People come to Ibiza for many, many reasons, but for sure, one of the reasons they come in the first instance is for these amazing nightclubs, and they've grown, they've developed, and they've evolved, and they've kind of helped, create this scene that now has kind of global renown. I love them all, and have loved them all, and continue to love them all, but I don't visit them as much as I used to.
Do you know what's amazing when you land in Ibiza? You land in the airport, and all you see is club promotion everywhere. All the clubs promoting, spending the money on all the buses, everywhere you go. The amount of money this island has generated just being the capital of the world for nightclubs is unbelievable.
And it's extraordinary.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, and it's really all a direct credit to the Ebithinko themselves, people themselves, really.
So Ebithinko, is that the Ibizan people? Is that the government or
the people from the island? You know, they've obviously this island has a long checkered history. You know, taking it all the way back to the pirates and stuff like this. It's always had a bit of a left field leaning, and it was that kind of left field leaning and that kind of acceptance to kind of external influences that allowed the hippie scene to develop in the 60s and 70s that kind of evolved into the music scene, the club scene, and so forth, and is continuing to evolve. And it was their compassion and I suppose and their understanding and you know, them allowing this scene to develop alongside their very simple lives back in the day. You know, they were farmers and very, very simple people, you know, but tourism just obviously changed them dramatically, and you know, they allowed it to happen. So it's all in credit down to them, really. And them,
how would you explain your journey owning SVV, which turned into like probably the most famous club on the island, a sort of club, hotel, rooftop, etc. How would you explain your journey? You put in 2.5 mil. How many partners were there?
There was 5 partners.
5 partners, okay. But you were the front. You were the front man.
I was the front man and the operator. So yeah, and basically the other partners, obviously Max, Nick, Neil, and Jamie. They were investors, but of course we. Well,
they city boys who had a load of money.
They were all city boys. Yeah, they had a load of money, all very smart.
Perfect.
And you know, they used to work on the Life floor in London, and that shut down. And they were all like kind of looking for something to do. And I met Max here. He was actually on the beach at Bora Bora, and we just got chatting. We found out we had the same birthday, the 12th of June, and then we become very close friends, and we still remain very close friends to this day. You know, and a business in Ibiza can be quite difficult because you know it's a cutthroat island, and everyone's pulling moves and things like this. But I was always very honest and very sincere, and always got the job done, and you know, I had a great time in the process. So you know, there was never any problems.
How long did it take you to get to a point of breaking even over those 18-year period?
It was such a phenomenal success. We because we were you know, we took quite a lot of cash investment. So I was able to start returning returns on that cash investment within 3 years.
3?
And then we had a mortgage that we paid off in 10 years. And then after that, it was just, you know, it was just happy days, really. We were just doing very, very well. And we were continually evolving. And that's something you need to do in Ibiza. Because every single year, people tend to come back to the island, and they're happy to see a premises that they love and have a relationship with evolving as well, you know. So I was always kind of putting the roof terrace or changing the rooms or evolving the restaurant. And then I started to work with a designer called Sean Cochran, and then we really went into the kind of luxury boutique category, and we kind of pimped it, and it went 5-star and very fancy. But we kept the nightclub. I reduced the size of it, but
what was the official capacity of that club?
Probably about 40 people.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, about 250 in there some nights. It was a TV lounge originally, the Experience Bar.
Everyone talks about that club, by the way.
Yeah. You know, but people that actually experienced it, honestly, become these sorts of stuff of legends. But yeah, it was. In the end, it got a bit too much. You know, because it got a bit too rowdy, and I'd have to kind of be there to control everything. And in the end, it started to lose its appeal a little bit. It just got a bit too much. So I went, okay, I need to evolve now.
What year out of the 18-year period, you've gone from year 2000, you come up with the concept, you got the investment in, you're breaking even, trying to claw the money back after 3 years. What was the period, what was your happiest period of the club, of the hotel being really successful, you really enjoying it?
I mean, I enjoyed it all of the time. You know, I was happy from the outset when we bought it and we started to develop it and turning it into that kind of party hotel location. And then I was also really, really happy to see the evolution of it as a business, you know, to actually kind of keep improving things like I mentioned in terms of the food we were offering, the service we were providing, the facilities, and then the design changed and I calmed it all down, but it still had an underlying kind of rock and roll edge to it. And it was just a complete joy. In fact, I massively regret selling it. It was a big mistake. One of the partners would kind of needed out, and we went along with this, and it was a big mistake, to be honest. And,
Really?
and to this day, I mean, I still own a couple of other hotels here.
So you sold that in 2018.
Yeah.
Why was it a big mistake for you personally?
Well, I mean, it was my job. First and foremost, it was also my social centre. It was a place that I loved. I used to spend most of my day, you know, so people used to come along there to see me and things like this, and all my friends loved it. So as much as it was something very important to me, it was something very important to all of my friends, my very close friends. It was our safe haven, essentially. So, I mean, if people were lost for something to do, they could just always just come to the hotel and hang out there, and we'd be there, and they know to be looked after. So essentially, it wasn't just me that lost it. We all lost it, really.
Was there still 5 investors when you sold it?
Yes, there was. Yeah.
And what was it? 3 investors say, let's get out, and 2 not.
It was.
How did it work?
Basically, it was. It was. One really wanted out, but basically, then Lionel Messi came along, and then made us a very attractive offer, and that sort of like kind of pushed us over the line, really. But again,
so Lionel Messi clocked it and I said, I want a piece of that. Come and bought it off you.
Basically, Lionel's got his people out there, and he was actually kind of looking to set up a hotel chain. So he was on an acquisition process. So his people heard about it. We actually had Cristiano Ronaldo as well. He's interested. He was actually developing a hotel business as well.
Could you not play him off against each other?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, 5-a-side pitch. Right, whoever scores first gets to buy the hotel.
Who does the most kick the uppies?
And so we got into this, and then it's irrespective of how much you sell something for. It's what you finally end up with is what counts.
How much did you sell it for?
I can't say, but we sold it for a very good price. And then
north of 10 mil.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then you pay a load of tax. We just done a big development project. So we just we had a bank loan to pay off, and then we had to indemnify all the staff.
So once it gets dwindled down, you're not as much as you think
precisely.
it would be.
But anyway, it's all water under the bridge. And
when you had to make that decision, did you all sit around a table, or were you all warming up to going, we've got to sell this, and you were like, no, I don't want to sell it? Or was it at one point you had a meeting going, lads, we're voting, it's being sold, are we in or not?
It was basically, we just kind of got the big offer, and it was a big attractive offer, and and maybe it'd come to it. We thought maybe it's come to the end of its journey, and we decided, okay, it was that time. So we kind of went through it. We sold it, and then every single one of the partners regrets it. To
they
be
do,
honest.
do they? Even the one who was really pushing it.
Yeah. We all regret it.
Is that because the property's probably doubled over the last 6 years again, or
it's not just that? It's something we're all very proud of. We all enjoy very much. You can, if in business, sometimes you release an amount of equity, okay, and so you have liquidity basically, and liquidity, it's called liquidity because it just falls through your fingers if you're not careful with it. I mean, I was lucky. I invested in other properties, but you have to, so it's like this. And it also would have been nice for our children to kind of move into it as well. Because they all loved it.
How old are your kids today?
I've got 2. My daughter's 14, Maribella. My son, Junior, Jason, he's 12.
And do they still remember the hotel?
My daughter more than my son. But yeah, in fact, to this point, my daughter doesn't even want to hear the name SVV anymore.
Right?
Yeah. She, because she used to love it. She used to go there, and even though it was an adults-only hotel,
everyone
precisely.
Yeah.
It was an adults-only hotel because you can't mix adults and what used to happen there. It's just like no. So she's just like that, So I had very, very fond memories of the hotel, as everybody does and did. So,
what were your movements after the hotel? How did you feel? How did you feel that it was done? Okay, you got a load of money in your bank. How did you personally feel for that next month? Did it take you 6 months to get over? It's like having a relationship. It's like being in a marriage, I guess.
Yeah, it did. I mean, what happened was, I thought I needed to do something different with my family. So I went to live in Amsterdam for a couple of years to kind of give my children a city dynamic.
Why the dam?
There was a few kind of, there was a few options in terms of, you can either hand over one big lump to the taxman basically, or you can kind of hand over the amount and then kind of actually do something different. So there was there was some choices. You could go anywhere basically. You could go to Dubai, people go to Italy, Portugal. And I was thinking like, well, where would be nice for my children to live? And I thought, okay, they've never lived in the north of Europe. Amsterdam's a beautiful city, cultural, artistic. There's a lot of creativity there. So I thought that would be nice. But the weather just drove me around the bend. In the end, after spending most of my life in Ibiza and then in the winter time, climbing mountains and spending time on beaches in Thailand and things like this, I couldn't suffer the weather, so I just moved back.
It must have been a lovely feeling for you over that whole period, being one of the main faces on Ibiza, knowing that as soon as people land, Jace, where are you? Come and meet me at the hotel.
It was great, and George, it was very nice for me because I was able to be in this unique position where I could facilitate people. They want to go to a nightclub or they want this information, that beach club or whatever, and I was able just to help everybody out. And I essentially made a career out of being nice to people.
Yeah.
That's all I ever wanted to do, and that's all I ever did. You know,
just take a moment there. I made a career out of being nice to people. How nice is that?
And I'm proud of that fact.
Same.
You know, there's not a single person
We've both been putting
here.
smiles on people's faces for the last 30 years in the world I do as putting on events and festivals and now podcasting, and you've been doing exactly the same.
And the thing
Beautiful.
Is you get such a buzz and such an amount of energy from being a nice person and being able to provide a good experience for somebody, and that's what SVV was, and my bar was, and Sands Beach Club that I had as well. I was always able to kind of really try and genuinely try to give people an amazing experience. I knew that when they would come to Ibiza, they'd have a great time because Ibiza was amazing. But it was also my personal responsibility. I believe that whilst they were in one of my locations, I would also put on the best show that I could in terms of service. I would always be there. Oh, you're being okay? Are you cool? You know, and then really try but genuinely want them to be having the best time of their lives, because that's what I think everyone deserves if they come to Ibiza.
And how did you worked it really well, leveraging people, staying at your hotel, drinking in your bar. Did you think of any other businesses at that time while you're running the hotel and you had the base bar going at the same time?
I mean, to be honest, the problem is here in Ibiza, there's only so much that you can do because there's only a certain amount of hours in a day. I did, but then I found out I would essentially be diluting myself a bit too much.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Precisely. For example, I mentioned when I had obviously the base and SVV and Sands Beach Club, I was literally just manic the whole day long. I'd wake up like this. I'd be like, I've got to go here and I've got to go there, and I'd be running around, and, you know, and then trying to, you know, be in a nightclub as well to do the host, and it was just all too much for me. I wasn't getting any younger, so I decided to focus on SVV. So I mean, Sands was amazing. We had me and Carl Cox.
Where was Sands? Did you own it with Carl Cox?
Yeah, we had it together, and Lynn Cosgrove, his manager, and Max, again, my partner. That was on Playa in Bossa. And of course, because we had this relationship with Carl, we done some amazing events down there. We had obviously Sasha, we had Pete Tong doing his birthday there, Eric Murillo, Eric Prids, you know, Deadmau5, done a big show down there. So we just had this amazing beach club. Obviously, when Carl himself used to come down and play, we'd have like 2,000-3,000 people on the beach. And it was so difficult to manage because, again, it was technically illegal. So obviously the local police would be coming along and they'd be turning the music down, and obviously the DJs, no, just one more. And I mean, I'd be like, oh my goodness, you know. So it just got so much. It's just got so much for me trying to manage all these different locations and trying to do a good job of them. So I thought, okay, what can I do here? So we eventually sold Sands, so that kind of took that off my plate, and I missed that as well, funnily enough. Everything I've sold I missed. It's ridiculous, really. There's a lesson in this: don't sell anything unless you really need to. So the beach club.
What was the actual reason why you sold Sands Beach Club?
Because I couldn't find a great manager. Okay. Staff's a very hard thing in Ibiza. I couldn't find a great manager. So if you haven't got a great manager, you have a great responsibility yourself. So that started to kind of, you know, cause me a bit of stress. And I'm just like, this is just too difficult. The bass bar, I was kind of, not that I grew out of it, but again, that would become a bit of a task. So I gave the bass bar over to my best friend, Tony Baloney. And I never saw another penny out of it.
Shout out to Tony. Is that your surname, Baloney?
No. Okay, you said Tony Ball, but he's my best friend. It was funny. Basically, the port was dying at this time, so essentially people stopped going to the ports because obviously the relationship with the clubs are broken, and people were going to new locations. Ushuaia had opened, so the port was kind of on its, you know, on its way down. So I said, okay, well, you can run the bar, but it was, you know, the bar was just getting quieter. People were at the hotel and stuff like this, so it wasn't his fault. But I never saw another penny out of it. And the one thing he did do.
Get that in there for the second time. That's for you, Tony.
So then I just focused on the hotel. And that was great because at this time SVV needed to move on. It had its real heavy duty party days, and everyone was a bit kind of, you know, bit jaded by that. So I thought, okay, we need to go in this luxury boutique direction. So that's when I brought in Sean Cochran, like I said, and we went. Was there
a time ever when you were running the hotel you could have lost your license, or you thought, I need to close this club down? Daily. Was that okay? Was that the bit you were always holding on to? Go, that there's trouble in that club, or there's something happening there. I've got to close the club. I've got to close the hotel. I've got to think on my feet quickly.
Precisely, and also what I was doing, because, you know, I call it shades of grey, because in Ibiza there is rules, but you actually choose whether you listen to them or not. Yeah. And you could kind of get away with a lot more back then. For example, I invented this roof terrace concept in Ibiza. It was me that put a roof terrace in SVV.
Yeah.
Now everyone's got a roof terrace, but they're amazing. It's like everyone wants to be as high as they can looking at these astonishing views. That was illegal, but and then the club was illegal. I put in a spa. So every single day when I was doing events, I remember one day we had the Cuban brothers who are just amazing.
He was on. He's coming on. He was on last week. In fact, Mike Keith. What a character! What a story!
Unbelievable. So we were doing a show there with the Cuban brothers. I think it was someone's birthday, and so Mike was in full swing doing his show. The dancing, the roller skating, all kind of kicking off. and then one of the neighbours called. So then the police have come through and they want him to shut down, and he wouldn't shut down, and he's kind of. I'm just, oh my goodness gracious me. So that was, it was moments like that. And I remember we'd done a concert up in the roof with Santigold, who was a kind of big singer at the time, like a full production, and the promoter wanted to kind of get that out there, and we'd done this, set the promotion up, and then the neighbours complained, and then the police are there, and I want them up the stairs, and it was a constant battle with authorities to actually be able to push the limits as much as we possibly could
without losing license.
Without losing license. Yeah. And again, we were very fortunate at this time. We had an Everything-Co gentleman who's one of my partners now, Agustin Planels, and he's I love this man. He's so organised and so structured, and has an air of authority about him. And he was able to, because he's an Everything-Co from the island, he was able to go to the town hall and resolve the issues that we'd caused by our lack of respect for the rules. And he was always able to go there and placate them. And okay, well, it won't happen again. And he'd be like, Jason, please don't do any more crazy ass parties. And the very next day, it'll be kicking off again.
What were the laws on the island? There was a point where you couldn't go partying back at people's villas, and there was a point where they had to put roofs on the clubs.
That was in 92.
That was the roof on the clubs.
Yeah, there was a roof in clubs. If you remember, Coup was all open air. All the clubs were open air. They were just amazing. But again, once Spain sort of, I think, become part of the kind of the whole EU thing, they had to there was new noise restrictions coming in. The neighbours got a bit more vocal in terms of what they didn't want people to kind of get away with anymore. So the whole kind of dynamic changed a little bit, and the roofs went on, and that's when it all changed.
What were your movements after you sold the hotel? Are you looking at other ventures? Have you bought a big villa? Have you done a villa up? What have been your business movements? I
mean, what I did, I invested in 2 other hotels, but I mean, not as Vive standard. They're kind of more like investments. We have a hotel in San Antonio called the Base Hotel, actually, in the West End, and then we have a small hostel in Ibiza town called the Base Hostel. We kept the name running, and then I built an amazing home, actually.
I've heard.
Tell me. It's quite special. Working with Sean Cochran and a very famous Everything-Co architect called Jordi Carreño. So I just wanted to create this amazing location that had all of my specific kind of preferences in terms of style and energy and the sound and this experience. The home's experience. It's not a sort of place where you'd.
Is it called experience?
It's not. It's called Casanova.
Is it called Casanova?
It's called Casanova. Yeah. Because when I bought,
where is it on the
island? It's in Canfonet.
Okay.
I called it Casanova because when I bought it was called Casa No because the previous owner was having an affair apparently, and then what used to happen was his kind of girlfriend lover who lived on the urbanisation would knock on the door and he'd be like, no. Anyway, so he called it Casa No, and I just changed the no into Nova, hence Casanova. The house is extraordinary, and I've been working with the Mandarin Oriental hotel chain. It's one of their luxury homes, and it's not the sort of place you'd want to kind of be. It's not.
How many bedrooms?
It's 6 bedroom. It's not what you'd call cozy.
Yeah.
It's very stylized. It's got this sound system that just resonates throughout the whole house with astonishing views. It's beautiful. It's the sort of house that a builder from Essex should never be able to own. But I managed to pull it off and develop it and build it. And I love it. It's the one thing that I actually have that represents me and my style and where I want to be.
Good for you, man. And that was on the back of Lionel Messi paying you off.
Yeah. And I say I invested in the other hotel. So I mean, I used the money. I put it into properties, and it's kind of keeps the family secure, so to say.
How would you explain the island to someone who's never been to the island from the 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, 10s, 20s, where we're now? How would you give like an overview?
I mean, how would I give an overview? I mean, Ibiza
It's magical, number one, isn't it?
It's magical.
Yeah.
And let me give you an example.
Yeah.
I mean, I travel a lot in the winters. I go off to India or Asia or South America, wherever. And I've been to some astonishing locations. And it doesn't matter how astonishing and amazing they are. Whenever you come back to Ibiza, you have a feeling it's like you're back here. You know, it's always beautiful. You know, you have the coast. It's a magical Mediterranean island. You know, so I would always say to everyone, listen, come with your eyes wide open and come and experience what kind of goes on here. You know, don't I mean, you can get lost in the nocturnal activities, in the clubs and things like this, but there's just so much more to it than that. You know, you've got amazing beaches, you've got an astonishing sort of culinary, you know, gastronomical scene here now, you know, and you've got the what people call the hippie part up in the north,
which is lovely as well.
And you've got the accessible part, which is San Antonio, which is where you start when you're younger. It's a bit more reasonably priced, and then you've got obviously kind of the jet set and hedonism of you know, the Ibiza town and its surroundings. But I would say to everyone, come here and, you know, just feel the magic and live the dream, you know, and you know, come and have the best time of your life.
What percentage you think you think about the amount of British people who have come to this island over the years? You know, all the clubs that are open, you're probably looking at 40, 50,000 people partying a weekend on a daily basis.
On a daily basis.
There's nowhere in the world will have that, ever.
And moreover, when you think about the lineups that you have here, the quality of the DJ talent, and you know, the amount of effort that these clubs put into their production, their promotions, and you mentioned the billboards earlier. You know, to actually cultivate this scene, and for the authorities here to allow it to happen, all of those a bit more controlled than it used to be. Yeah, on it goes. And you know, my good friend Tony Truman, who's done O Beach, I love what he's done over in San Antonio,
and he's now doing it in Dubai.
He's doing it in Dubai. And the thing is, because Ibiza has such a global reputation, people look on this island for inspiration in terms of where the next trends are. You know, what's the direction for music, for style, for fashion, and you know, that for an island that is literally 20 by 40 kilometers, to have such a global reach and a global influence is quite extraordinary when you think about it.
What faces live on the island now?
What faces live on the island now? I mean,
the number of DJs I've bought out here just because they're here every Friday, then travelling the world and come and basing themselves back here. But what faces actually on here? English faces who have stayed here over the last 30 years with yourself, 20 years.
I mean, you know, it's hard to say who actually lives here full time.
Danny Whittle.
Danny Whittle's a complete face. I mean, to Tony Truman, you know, there's obviously Charlie Chester. How are you going to be interviewing? I mean, in terms of celebrities, they tend to come and go. But lots of them have their second homes here, or their holiday homes, you know, because everyone has this relationship with Ibiza.
Tell me about the club scene, on how it's changed since the 90s to how it is now. Do you think Ibiza's got a little bit too expensive for that 18-year-old, 19, 20-year-old coming through?
I believe it has. I mean, you can still find cheap. When I say cheap and cheerful, you know, in terms of what you're eating, if you're kind of on a real budget, you're not going to restaurants, you're eating sandwiches on the beach, which we all done that back in the day as well. You know, it's no problem, you know, but it's expensive. It's like, you know, is there value here? There is, in terms of, you have to consider the experience that you're getting. It obviously, you can't put value on it, but from a fiscal perspective, it's you know, it's quite hard, you know, to have access to it unless you save up all your wages for the whole year round to come and enjoy this.
Think about the business model of Ibiza. Really, is 6 months a year. 5 months a year, that club world, they've got to earn as much money in the restaurants, as much money as they possibly can, like a high percentage of the clubs and high percentage of the restaurants in that period where the tourists are here, from what we're talking, May, June, July, August, September, and a bit of October now.
You're completely right. Now, I used to see it like this. I used to essentially, because when you're actually working, running a business or businesses here, you're always on. You know, you don't have weekends off, or you don't finish work at Friday or stuff like this. You are always in. The minute you open your eyes, you're involved until the minute you close them, guaranteed. So you couldn't sustain that for 12 months of the year. You know, you know, it was great. So you're working super hard for 6 months, partying hard for 6 months, having the best time ever. But then once that finishes, you just need to kind of, you know, relax a little bit. And that's what I used to do. I used to kind of head off to India and Asia and wherever to actually kind of, you know, you go from 6 months of that to 6 months of that. and it gives you your balance over the course of the 12 months, which always worked for me. But yeah, you do. You condense a year's worth of work into 6 months or 7 months.
Tell me about your travels. Tell me about your Thailand experiences, your India experiences.
Well, I mean, I've always had a wanderlust. I remember when I was a kid reading encyclopedias and looking at things like Machu Picchu in Peru and Borobudur and the pyramids and, you know, Angkor Wat and all these sort of ancient monuments and, you know, these ancient civilizations. I always held a fascination for me. And I wanted to visit them, and I love nature. I also kind of, you know, I have a spiritual side that I like to embrace as well when I have the time. So, you know, things like trekking. I mean, I love trekking in the Himalayas. I mean, I've been to Everest on both sides, not to the top, to the base camps in Tibet and Nepal, and trekking through the Amazon and adventures like this. So I always really didn't want to be lost in, you know, just in any specific sort of activity. I always wanted to be able to mix it up. And I'd literally finish my season having the most amazing time, and I'd whack on my backpack, and the next thing you know, I'll be you know, in India on a bus with the local people with a chicken sat on my lap. You know what I mean? And I would just do this. And I said, and it gave me a really good perspective. And it also, you know, going back to this, what we mentioned earlier about just wanting to be kind and considerate and thoughtful all the time. You know, I remember, you know, traveling in India when I was quite young and seeing people and what their lives were and what they represented, and them having very few possibilities to grow in their own lives. And I thought, okay, you know, I don't have any real right to be anything apart from, you know, positive and happy all the time, because I have chances and possibilities in my life. And you know, it was like kind of those global adventures that gave me, you know, this perspective. And I try to always maintain positivity, and I try to teach my children the same thing. And you know, because through positivity, positive things come back to you, don't they?
Of course,
it does. Same, you know, if you're negativity
absolutely
returns. And you know, I always like to keep it true.
Jason, this is fantastic. What an eventful life you've lived.
Yeah, you know, as I said, I always
count yourself lucky.
I mean, you tend to make
your
own
luck.
luck.
Of course, you create your own luck, but you must look back and go, do you know what? 30 years living in Ibiza, traveling to Southeast Asia, traveling all over the world, running nice businesses, being kind. Do you know what I mean? You're kind of ticking all the boxes. Listen, there's a lot of, we're covering just an hour or so here, but there's a lot of highs and lows with them. There are a lot of pressures that have gone on the way that might have broken you at times.
Oh God, yeah, you can't imagine. You know, to create your ideal lifestyle. Okay. And that's what it is. I mean, you know, some people can get it from their parents and stuff. That is, I didn't. I just found out on obviously I got the values from my parents, my mother specifically. You know, I just wanted, I wanted to experience life in the best possible way that I could. I wanted to see as much as I could and learn as much as I could and be the best person that I could possibly be. And that's what I did. I mean, I was born with a genetic lung disorder called cystic fibrosis that I never let inhibit my life in any way or form. So kind of having this genetic illness kind of gave me this perspective. My life expectancy was 30 when I was born. So kind of
how old are you today?
55. So kind of having that kind of essentially like a sword of Damocles hanging over your head, you kind of just want to live every day like it's your last and just maximize every single moment. And that's what I always did. I just kind of thought, okay, you know, at any one particular moment, like it could be for any of us. You might get run over by a bus tomorrow. And I just wanted to just live my best life.
Living in the present.
And you know, just you know, so I did. I created this dream existence, doing something that I love with people that I kind of respect and, you know, love as well. And, you know, just having these global experiences and
Jason,
continue to do so.
I've absolutely loved this episode. What a wonderful life you've lived. Fantastic. What an eventful life.
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate you coming on in probably the best, most beautiful setting we could have around the world right now.
Here we are, my friend.
Yeah,
Here we are.
Quality. Welcome to Ibiza, people. Jace, you're a pleasure, mate. Absolute pleasure.
Likewise. Thanks so much. Very nice talking.
Hey, nice. Cheers, mate.
Bye-bye.
Wicked. Mate, that was really good. Thanks for watching, guys. If you'd like to see someone on the show, leave a comment below. And if you haven't already, do us a favour, show us a bit of love, press the subscribe button, and it allows us to grow the show even bigger and bigger each week. Nice one.